If I could have your attention here in the Media Center, we'll now continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability, and we're now joined by Jamie McMurray, driver of the #1 McDonald Chevrolet for Chip Ganassi Racing. And Jamie, once again, that #1 car shows up at the racetrack with speed. Walk us through your practices today and what you're anticipating for qualifying tonight and for tomorrow night's race at Kansas.
Yeah, it was a little bit more eventful than I wish it would have been in practice. This racetrack is interesting, and it's been this way the last couple of years. The gray area of the track has a lot of grip until you get that like last car length from the wall, and it gets really dirty up there, and kind of gives you a false sense of security. And I think it happened to Kyle. I haven't talked to Kyle yet. But I was just kind of moving up the racetrack. I was going to make a long run right there, and I got a little bit too high and got loose and ended up getting into the wall. It didn't tear our car up, but it did kill about 20 minutes of practice for us that we needed for race trim. So we switched over to qualifying trim, and the car was pretty good in qualifying trim. Both of our cars are fast again this weekend, and yeah, I mean, I feel good about going into qualifying. I think we'll be fine in the race.
Okay, we're going to open the floor for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We're going to start in the back left with Karen.
Hi, Jamie. We've always thought about you from Joplin and Carl from Columbia and, of course, Clint from Emporia. Now with Carl out of the picture, is it the race between you and Clint to see who can win here and, claim this as like your home track victory?
Yeah, I feel like Carl and Clint play that up more than what I do. I grew up in Missouri, and that's always going to be my hometown. But I've lived in North Carolina for 20 years now, or longer than that, and that's my home, and that's where my kids are from. And I would love to win at Kansas Speedway, but I want to win there because that's where we race this weekend, not necessarily because I grew up 200 miles south of here. So I'm gonna let Clint have that hometown track thing, and I'm just gonna be Jamie.
Go next to Brett and then back to Rich.
Brett Williams, SpeedwayDigest.com. Jamie, what have you learned from Kyle Larson? I mean, I know that he's a young driver, a lot of young drivers, they talk about learning from the veterans, but what have you learned from him?
Well, the one thing that I have learned from Kyle is I grew up, working on cars and always trying to make the car better, try to make the car drive better, try to make the chassis handle better. And Kyle grew up in a totally different era where you just drive the car, and if the car's not good, you move your line around. And I feel like he's somewhat opened my eyes in that we're not always going to get the car perfect, and if the car's not perfect, then maybe search around and see if you can figure something out. So I've learned a lot of things from him. Mainly probably in video games, but I have learned some things on the track as well.
We'll go to Rich, then to Jerry, and then to Todd.
Jamie, Rich Colbert, the Motor Racing Network. Next week, the All-Star Race, you're a past winner there. They've changed the things around on the format. They've got softer tires in there. Have you guys worked out a strategy to win that thing again, and how are those soft tires going to work out for you?
I have to be honest, I haven't even read the rules for the All-Star race yet. That's something I was going to look at on Monday. I know that they've changed the format a little bit. The thing I will tell you about soft tires is that soft tires, in my experience at testing, aren't always faster. So I don't know that there's a guarantee there. I don't think they've done a test there at least. So sometimes when you put softer tires on, it messes up the balance of your car, and so it's not a guaranteed faster lap. We did a tire test just this week at Kentucky, and we tried a couple of softer compounds. Some of them were faster, some of them were slower. So I think that's going to be interesting to see if the softer tire actually is quicker, or do you not want that? I don't know the rules enough to know if you have to use both of them in the race. So. Yeah, that's going to be interesting next weekend.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net, PRN. Jamie, last week, great finish for you. Kyle's leading the points. The resurgence that you guys have had as an organization, can you address that and where your focus is headed going forward?
Well, I think the biggest thing for our group right now is to not be content. It's been years in the making to get, you know, every department at our race shop better, and it's, you know, it's taken everyone that works there, their ideas, and getting the cars faster. And I think what I hear a lot at the shop right now is just not to be content, that to continue to try to develop and make the cars quicker. We did a test at Kentucky this week, and I was so impressed when I showed up because our car had a lot of new parts on it. It had so many sensors on it that they couldn't even take all the data at one time. We were having to only use some of the sensors for certain runs and then switch them out because there weren't enough ports. And there's a lot of ports. So there's a lot of ways to take data on a car. But our whole test, with the exception of the stuff we did for Goodyear, was all about developing and trying to get the cars better. And I thought that just listening to Matt and the engineers talk that we learned a few things. So it was a great test, and hopefully we can implement some of those pieces on our cars here in the next few weeks and continue to get better. Well, if Felix said 30, I'm going to say 15. Just going to go out on a limb here. But I honestly, I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that, and I'm not sure what they've done.
Todd?
Kind of along those same lines. I mean, Kyle's already in. I mean, how much do you guys focus, work together on trying to make sure that, get you a win, get you qualified, or is it too early in the season to start thinking that way?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, there's, I don't know that they're, with the exception of maybe being at a plate race last weekend, you really can't work together. I would never expect Kyle, if I'm running second, to pull over and let me win to lock me in, nor do I think he would even kind of do that. But I mean, the whole working together is just kind of throughout the weekend, and it's not as much with Kyle and I think, as it is with the teams. Kyle did come over to me this weekend, probably the first time all year, because of the issues they had in practice, and when we went out and made our first mock qualifying run, we were first. He came over just kind of asked me what I thought and what would the car feel like. So there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's about the teams working together and just developing better cars each weekend. Yeah, and then the little turd went out and beat me, so how's that?
Additional questions here for Jamie. Well, Jamie, good luck in qualifying later today, and good luck tomorrow in the race.
Yeah, so I want to embarrass Bev Mittler here. If you can see sitting in the middle, that's Mike Mittler's wife, and she that family was such a big part of me making it to NASCAR, and I love getting to come back to these races because I get to see her. She always comes over to my trailer, and she came over right when I was walking over, and I'm like, you have to go to the media center with me so we can hang out. So, Bev, I want to embarrass you just a little bit. Are you embarrassed? Even over Carl? Really? That makes me feel so good. I appreciate that. So, let's go talk.